everyone. The following diagram shows the graph of f of x given as a sine of bx plus c. So looking at this means this is your vertical shift. This is going to have to do with your period. This is your amplitude and reflection. So we're going to answer these questions. We'll get started. It's given us a minimum point at 3,5 here and a maximum at 9,17. So it's 17. So we have to find the value of c and show that b equals pi divided by 6 and find the value of a. So first of all, we're going to look at this graph. We know it's sine, and we're going to go ahead and start the graph here. All right, so if we start the graph here, this is half of a rotation right in there. And since it's sine, we know our a is going to be negative. So really we have y equals negative sine of x. So therefore, to find the value of c, all you do is, that's your midline here, and all you do is you add your y's, because usually sine starts here at y equals 0. So we translate it up, and all you do is add 17 plus 5 divided by 2. So that's going to equal 22 divided by 2 equals 11. So that's your value of c. And it says, show that, so that means the midline's right in here. All right, show that b equals pi divided by 6. So now your period equals 2 pi divided by b. And the period we can look at, we know we have half of a wave from 3 to 9. So this is 6. So we have to add 6 to get the full period. So if you wanted the full length of sine. So I know my period is 12 equals 2 pi divided by b. Or b equals 2 pi divided by 12, which equals pi divided by 6. You could have just said b equals 2 pi divided by your period. All right, now it says find the value of a. Well, a is this amplitude here, the distance here, and the distance here. So basically, all you do is you subtract your y's and divide by 2. So that's going to be 12 divided by 2 equals 6. In our case, it's negative 6. So we're just going to call a equals negative 6, because they already gave us the equation here. The amplitude's 6, but it's a reflection. So it got reflected over the midline. Now, it says the graph, let's move on from there. It says the graph of G is obtained from the graph of F by this translation. So this is your horizontal translation. This is your vertical. So there's no vertical translation, but we have K. In this case, when we look at f of x, we have negative 6 sine pi divided by 6 x minus some k. So that's the translation. And then plus 11. So we have to find k, and basically it says the maximum point of the graph of G, the new graph of G, equals 11.5 517. So this is 917. So if we move this over to 11.5, we're adding 2.5. So your K is 2.5. So our K equals 2.5. So your G of X new equation is negative 6 sine of pi divided by 6 times X minus 2.5 plus 11. All right, so there's that. And it says the graph of G changes from concave up to concave down when X equals W. So basically, there's two ways to do this. You can take the two derivatives, or the second derivative of X, and set it to 0 and get that. But you can also notice, since we're given a graph, that from here to 9, so by recognizing the inflection point, we're going from here, and then it inflects, so it's concave up here, then it starts concaving down. This is concave up, then concave down. So we're at 6 here. So all you have to do for that is just to write that X equals W minus K. Which you could say W equals X plus K. So this point here of inflection starts at 6, but we're adding our K because we're really talking about G. So we're looking, this graph here is F. And remember, G is just a shift to the right by 2.5. So if you add 2.5, that gives you your W. So W equals 8.5. Okay. Then it says, hence or otherwise, find the maximum positive rate of change. So basically, there's two ways to do this. You can take the derivative of W, so G prime of W, and remember G of X was negative 6 sine of pi divided by 6 X. Let's see, are we using X or T? So that would be G, where's G? X minus 2.5 plus 11. And then we'll do that. So when you take the derivative of G, that's going to be negative pi, because you multiply these two, so let's do that. So it's negative 6 times pi divided by 6. And then you take the derivative of that as cosine of pi over 6x. These two are going to go out after you take the derivative. So that's it. And then, so this is going to end up being negative pi cosine of pi divided by 6x. All right. And to find the maximum change, you're going to write this as equals to negative pi times cosine. I'm sorry, my recording went out. So pi divided by 6, and then you have your 8 8.5 minus 2.5. All right, and that's going to give you negative pi cosine pi over 6 times 6, which gives you negative pi cosine of pi. Cosine of pi is negative 1, so it's negative pi times negative 1, which equals pi. All right. You could also done you could have also done f prime of 6. And if you've done f prime of 6, you take the derivative of f prime, you would have still gotten, let's just write f of x. So that's negative, let's write down our equation for f of x. So f of x was negative 6 sine of pi over 6x, 6 plus 11. Okay, so the derivative of that, and then we're going to input the 6, is negative pi cosine, so that should have been x there, pi divided by 6x. And when you plug in the 6, you're going to get the same thing we got here, and that's going to give you negative pi cosine, and you plug in pi divided by 6 times 6. That basically gives you the same thing, which gives you pi. So the maximum positive rate of change of g is pi, or you can also write it as 3.14 for 3 significant figures. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.